Reading 85 from the Psychological Commentaries on the Teachings of Gurdjieff and Ouspensky by Dr. Maurice Nicoll, Volume 1. Birdlip, September 2nd, 1943. The Opposites, Part 3. In the esoteric Greek thinking, when one opposite encroached on another, a state of injustice was said to exist. Justice, or righteousness, was regarded as a state of balance. You know how often the word righteousness is used in the Gospels, as for instance when it is said, "Except your righteousness exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no wise enter the kingdom of heaven." Matthew 5:20. The Greek word for righteousness, akin, has the original meaning of being upright, and so between the opposites. The just or righteous man, both of the New Testament and of the Socratic teaching 4 centuries earlier, and of the teaching of Pythagoras as early as the 6th century BC, is the upright man, the man who stands balanced between the opposites, and is neither of them. This is a very difficult idea to understand. But the idea of the just man was directly derived from the ancient teaching about the opposites. A one-sided man could not be a just man. A fanatic, a bigoted or scrupulous man could not be just, nor could a man who lived in some small part of himself be just. To be righteous, to be just, is to be balanced. Do not misuse the word balanced, imagining that perhaps because you do not feel things so strongly as others, you are more balanced. To be balanced is not to be stupid, but to be alive to every side of existence. In speaking of the idea of the just or balanced man, we can use the conception of the development of all the centers, where it is said that a one-sided man cannot be balanced. But here we are speaking of justice or balance from the angle of the pendulum and the law of opposites, and cannot bring in the centers save to this extent. One center may sometimes appear to act as the opposite of another, and again, in each center, there are different pendulums swinging at different rates. As was said before, when one opposite encroached on another, a state of injustice was said to exist. This is constantly happening in ourselves and in life around us now and in history. Take history. Is it a steady line of progress, or is it a swinging to and fro, and a continual encroachment of one nation on another? Once the Egyptians were powerful, then the Jews, then the Greeks, then the Romans, then the Goths, the Arabs, and so on. All this is a to and fro swinging, not a line. And it is the same in the case of one's own life, of which one gets a not very clear impression. Or take one's thought. Has it not continually swung to and fro? Has not doubt encroached on assertion, and so on? Or take your emotional life, if you remember it. Is it a steady line, or can you say, for instance, that some emotions have encroached on others, and are always doing so? What is it we have to keep steady? Now, ancient teaching saw the world as kept between the opposites, not in a single line of progress, but in a swinging motion. One opposite encroached on another and was overcome, and in turn encroached upon. It is like a continual raiding of one camp on another. In this continual strife, everything was contained. In this tension of opposing forces, life manifested itself. To pray for the end of this tension and strife is to pray for death, as one Greek said. It is best to think of the opposites as forces having opposite signs, not as things. A thing may conduct one or another force. We know that behind visible matter in the regime of the atom, only 2 forces are met with, positive and negative to begin with. They are opposites. It is very strange to think that this is so. Matter is built up of primary opposite forces. Do you see what I mean? The world appears out of a tension that is sometimes harmonized. The primary opposites were called by an ancient Mediterranean school love and hate, or attraction and repulsion. What was meant was that there is a force that unites and an opposite force that separates, and that these two forces lie behind all things. When love or desire for union is uppermost, all things tend to come together, and creation appears. When hate and strife predominate, all things break up and vanish. This school taught that the universe comes together and breaks up in a vast time cycle or pendulum swing. The pendulum swing is only a cycle seen, as it were, sideways. This idea of things coming together in the cosmic creation and sundering into chaos is also found in ancient Eastern schools. For example, Brahma is said to breathe out and then breathe in the universe. From this point of view, the properties of the physical universe will never be constant, since the tendency of particles to unite or otherwise will not be the same at every point of time. Everything will change, not merely fashions and viewpoints and theories, but the properties of things, so that what worked once will not necessarily do so today. Seen in this light, science will be always rediscovering itself and recasting its ideas. A remedy that once was effective will cease to be, and so on. And the same process will affect human affairs. As love cosmically gains the upper hand, people will unite. As hate grows, they will separate and be scattered. This view is really the same as that expressed in Ecclesiastes, where it is said that there is a time for gathering and a time for scattering, etc. Only it is expressed in terms of a vast pendulum swing, and not in terms of lesser and even little pendulums. In both statements, what is meant is that the tendencies of things are not the same at different times. Consider for a moment our position today. What is the tendency of things? Do you see any tendency? At least we can say that the tendency of things today is not the same as that of a century ago. If you look at a pendulum swinging against a wall, you will see that it covers the same ground to and fro. At any point at which it is, may be in a forward or reverse direction. That is, things may be at the same point as before, but moving in the reverse direction. In studying the swing of the pendulum in ourselves, we notice we come to the same points, but that often the tendency is different. Things are the same, but moving in another direction. We are, say, irritable and becoming pleasant, or pleasant and growing irritable. The work teaches that we are most unconscious, most asleep, when any pendulum in us is passing the midpoint. Here it is moving fastest. So we live, as it were, in extremes at either end of the pendulum swing, and do not know what lies in the middle. We swing, as I have heard it said, between red and green, between blue and yellow, but cannot see the white light in the center, which is a combination of all colors. If we could retain full consciousness and memory right through the swing, we would not only remember the opposite states at each end, but would begin to catch sight of a third factor which lies in the middle. But our consciousness works with too slow an energy ordinarily. Of this we will speak at another time. At present, it can be said that we should try to see pendulums in ourselves and in life, and try not to identify with the two ends of the swing. Our moods are all hung on to pendulums. We should not trust them. Unfortunately, we identify with them. We take them as ourselves. We say, I feel, I think, and so on. We forget that real I is in the center of the pendulum swing, and we allow ourselves to swing between excitement and dejection, between enthusiasm and depression, between overvaluation and undervaluation, between conceit and humility, and so on, endlessly. In all this, there is no center of gravity. Remember that by identifying with one side of the swing, you will be under the power of the other side when it takes charge, and you will see no connection. Why, one says, they cannot be connected because they are opposite. That is exactly why they are, and this is what we are talking of in these papers.